Story number 1. Trapped in the Blizzard, USA. 1979. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that winter storm in 1979 gripping me like the icy fingers of the mountain itself. My name is Robert Matthews, and the harrowing experience of being trapped in the heart of the Rocky Mountains has left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I close my eyes. It was late December. The snow piling high and the winds howling like restless spirits across the peaks. My wife, Linda, our teenage daughter, Sarah, and our younger son, Tommy, decided to embark on a winter vacation to the Rockies, seeking solace and adventure away from the hustle and bustle of our suburban life. We rented a sturdy, all-terrain vehicle, equipped with the essentials for a week-long trip: food, warm clothing, and a map of the less-traveled backroads that promised untouched beauty and serenity. The first few days were everything we had hoped for. We skied down pristine slopes, hiked through snow-covered trails, and reveled in the breathtaking vistas that stretched endlessly before us. The mountains were majestic, their silent grandeur a stark contrast to the chaos we had left behind. But as we ventured deeper into the wilderness, the weather began to shift ominously. On the 5th day, we decided to explore a remote area known for its stunning but challenging terrain. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the snow-draped landscape, when dark clouds rolled in from the west. By the time we reached our chosen campsite, the temperature had plummeted, and the wind had picked up, carrying with it a biting chill that seeped into our bones. We set up camp quickly, the urgency of the impending storm pushing us to work efficiently. As night fell, the sky transformed into a swirling mass of gray, the first flakes of snow beginning to fall. Linda kept a close eye on the weather forecast on her portable radio, her face etched with concern. "We need to prepare for a blizzard," she warned, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "It looks like it's going to get worse overnight." I tried to reassure her. "We've got enough supplies, and our vehicle is well equipped. We'll be fine." But deep down, I shared her unease. The mountains held a certain power, an ancient presence that made you feel both insignificant and vulnerable. As midnight approached, the storm hit with full force. Snow fell in relentless sheets, the wind howling like a pack of wolves, tearing at our tent and making it nearly impossible to stay warm. Visibility dropped to mere feet, and the world outside became a blinding white void. Inside the tent, we huddled together, trying to stay calm and conserve body heat. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came in the form of eerie, muffled knocking sounds on the tent walls. At first, we dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on our minds, but the knocking grew louder and more deliberate, as if someone or something was trying to get our attention. Linda held Tommy close, her eyes wide with fear, while Sarah tried to comfort him, her voice trembling. "Who's out there?" I called out, my voice barely audible over the storm's rage. But there was no response, only the relentless howl of the wind and the pounding of snow against the tent fabric. Hours passed in a tense silence, broken only by the occasional crack of ice and the persistent knocking. The fear in the tent was palpable, our minds struggling to comprehend the unexplainable phenomena unfolding around us. The temperature inside dropped further, and a sense of cold dread settled over us, making it difficult to breathe. Just as we thought the storm might begin to subside, the knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence that seemed to press in on us from all sides. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the tent, followed by the sound of something or someone trying to break through. The tent flaps were ripped away by the wind, and snow cascaded inside, extinguishing the small heater we had set up to keep warm. Panic surged through me as I grabbed our emergency blankets, trying to cover my family and protect them from the biting cold. "We need to stay together," I urged, my voice hoarse. "Don't let go of each other." But amidst the chaos, a shadowy figure appeared at the edge of our vision, a fleeting glimpse of something moving against the storm's fury. My heart raced as I turned to look, but there was nothing there. only the swirling snow and the darkness beyond. The feeling of being watched intensified, a malevolent presence lurking just beyond the tense, fragile walls. Linda clutched Sarah tightly, her knuckles white, while Tommy whimpered softly, fear etched on his face. "What's happening?" Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I replied, my mind racing to find a rational explanation. "But we need to stay strong." As the night dragged on, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The wind's fury seemed to amplify the eerie sensations inside the tent, making it difficult to distinguish between reality and nightmare. The sense of dread was suffocating, our thoughts clouded by fear and the relentless cold. Finally, as dawn began to break, the storm's intensity began to wane, the wind dying down and the snow slowing to a gentle fall. Exhausted and on the brink of collapse, we dared to emerge from the tent. The world outside transformed into a serene, snow-covered landscape bathed in the soft light of day. Relief washed over us as we assessed our situation. The vehicle was buried under several feet of snow, our tracks leading nowhere, swallowed by the vast expanse of white. But as we prepared to dig ourselves out, a horrifying discovery awaited us. On the windshield of our vehicle was a series of large, deep bloodstains. Unlike any pattern created by an accident or animal, the marks were too symmetrical, too deliberate to be random. "What the hell happened here?" Linda demanded, her voice breaking. Before we could process the information, we noticed something even more disturbing. The snow around the vehicle was covered in strange, elongated footprints, far larger and deeper than any animal we had encountered. They seemed to converge towards the dense forest, disappearing into the trees with an ominous finality. As we followed the trail, our fear grew. The footprints led us deeper into the wilderness, away from any signs of civilization, towards a place that felt untouched by time. The air grew colder still, and the shadows of the trees seemed to dance and shift, playing tricks on our already frayed nerves. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream, echoing through the forest like a ghostly wail. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the scream belonged to one of us. Turning around, I saw the figure of Johann, our friend and hunting companion, lying motionless in the snow, his eyes wide open in a silent scream. Blood seeped from a deep wound on his chest, the sight more horrifying than anything we had encountered so far. "Johann!" I shouted, rushing to his side. But he was gone, disappeared without a trace, as if swallowed by the very snow that surrounded us. Desperation and terror took hold as we struggled to comprehend the unimaginable loss. We decided to leave the footprints behind and focus on finding a way back. But the sense of being followed never left us. Every rustle of the wind, every crack of a branch, heightened our fear, making us question our every step. After what felt like hours of trekking through the desolate wilderness, we stumbled upon a clearing where the remnants of an old cabin stood, partially buried in snow. The structure was decrepit, its windows shattered and doors hanging off their hinges. Inside, the room was eerily silent, save for the faint sound of dripping water and the crackling of a dying fire. As we explored the cabin, we found signs of a recent struggle: broken furniture, overturned chairs, and splatters of blood on the walls. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the musty odor of decay. In the corner of the room stood a large, ornate mirror, its surface clouded with frost. As we approached, the reflection revealed something that made our blood run cold. A figure standing behind us, its eyes hollow and empty, staring directly into our souls. "We need to get out of here," Linda whispered, her voice barely audible. But as we turned to flee, the door slammed shut with a force that sent us sprawling to the floor. The temperature in the cabin plummeted, our breaths visible in the freezing air as the presence of something malevolent pressed in on us from all sides. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fear. Silence answered me, broken only by the sound of our own racing hearts. Then, without warning, the mirror shattered, the shards piercing through the snow and embedding themselves in our flesh. Pain exploded through my body as I realized the true nature of the horror that had claimed Johann and threatened our very lives. With sheer willpower, we pushed against the door, forcing it open and stumbling out into the snowy night. The storm had subsided, leaving behind a haunting stillness that seemed to hold the forest in its icy grip. We didn't stop until we reached the main trail, the footprints fading behind us as if erased by the storm's relentless fury. Rescue teams arrived the next day, drawn by our desperate calls and the sight of our battered vehicle. We were found alive but deeply traumatized, our bodies bruised and frostbitten from the ordeal. The authorities investigated, but the mysteries of that night remained unsolved. No trace of Johann, no explanation for the bloodstains and strange footprints, and no signs of any otherworldly presence. The aftermath of the storm left our family shattered. Linda and I struggled with the nightmares that plagued our nights, our children too young to fully comprehend the horror they had witnessed. The once joyous memories of our winter vacation were now overshadowed by the darkness that had enveloped us, making us hesitant to speak of the events that had nearly taken everything from us. Years have passed since that winter night, but the scars remain, the memories of those ghostly figures, the screams lost in the storm, and the overwhelming sense of dread still linger in our minds. We never returned to the Rockies, the mountains now a symbol of fear and the unknown forces that can lie hidden within nature's most beautiful landscapes. The story of our survival became a cautionary tale among friends and family, a chilling reminder of the thin line between adventure and nightmare. Some say the spirits of the storm still roam the Rockies, their sorrowful cries carried by the wind, forever seeking the warmth and life that the snow has long since claimed. And so, I warn others to heed the warnings of the past, to respect the power of nature, and to understand that some forces are beyond our control. For in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the haunting shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the strongest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival. Story number 2. The abandoned house in Pennsylvania. I still wake up in the dead of night. The lingering chills of that October stay with me like an unwelcome shadow. My name is Rebecca Harris, and what began as a dream of a fresh start for my family turned into a nightmare that haunts us to this day. It was spring when my husband, Michael, and I decided to leave the bustling city life behind. We wanted something different for our 2 children, Emma and Jake, a place where they could grow up surrounded by nature and free from the constant noise and rush of urban living. After months of searching, we stumbled upon an old listing for a house in rural Pennsylvania. It was a charming, albeit abandoned, Victorian-style home nestled at the end of a long, winding driveway surrounded by overgrown gardens and towering oak trees. The house, with its peeling white paint and boarded-up windows, exuded a silent invitation. The real estate agent assured us that it was a hidden gem with immense potential. Intrigued by the possibility of transforming it into our dream home, we decided to take the plunge. The day we moved in was bright and filled with hope. The kids were excited to explore their new surroundings, and Michael and I were eager to start the renovations. The initial days were everything we had hoped for: sunlight streaming through the large windows, the scent of fresh paint, and the joy of making a house our own. However, it wasn't long before the peaceful facade began to crack, revealing the dark secrets that lay hidden within the walls. It started subtly. Doors would open and close on their own, often slamming shut without warning. Emma swore she saw shadows moving out of the corner of her eye, and Jake would tell us about toys rearranging themselves overnight. At first, we dismissed these occurrences as the house settling or the kids' overactive imaginations. But as time went on, the phenomena grew more frequent and disturbing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room, we heard footsteps echoing from the hallway. Michael and I exchanged uneasy glances before heading towards the source of the sound. The hallway was empty, but as we passed the staircase, We saw a fleeting glimpse of a dark figure at the top of the stairs. When we turned back, it was gone. Determined to get to the bottom of these strange events, I decided to delve into the house's history. I spent hours at the local library, poring over old records and newspaper clippings. That's when I discovered the chilling story of the previous owners, the Thompson family. In the late 1940s, the Thompson family had lived in the house. They were a happy family of 4, beloved by the community. However, one tragic night, a mysterious fire broke out, engulfing the house in flames. Despite the efforts of the local fire department, the entire family perished in the blaze. The fire was deemed accidental, caused by an electrical fault, but many believed there was more to the story. Rumors swirled about strange lights and unexplained noises preceding the fire, hinting at a darker, more sinister force at play. The more I learned about the Thompsons, the more uneasy I became. Their story seemed to echo the strange occurrences we were experiencing. I shared my findings with Michael, and together, we decided to take further precautions. We installed security cameras and began documenting every strange event that transpired. One night, as a heavy rainstorm raged outside, the disturbances reached a terrifying peak. The power flickered, and the house was plunged into darkness. The sounds of footsteps, whispering voices, and furniture crashing against the walls filled the air. Emma and Jake were terrified, huddling together in their bedroom, while Michael and I tried to remain calm. Suddenly, the main door burst open, slamming against the wall with a force that shook the entire house. The room temperature plummeted, our breaths visible in the frigid air. In the dim light from the lightning outside, we saw the apparition of the Thompson family standing at the foot of the stairs. Their eyes were hollow, their faces etched with eternal sorrow and pain. "Leave this place," the apparition of Mrs. Thompson intoned, her voice echoing through the storm. "You do not belong here." Terrified, we backed away, the visions of the ghostly family intensifying with each passing moment. Michael grabbed my hand, and we made a desperate run for the front door. But it wouldn't budge. The house seemed to come alive, trapping us within its haunted confines. The screams of the apparitions filled the air, their sorrowful wails a haunting melody that reverberated through every room. In a final act of desperation, I remembered the old journal I had found in the basement, a journal that belonged to Eleanor Thompson. According to the entries, Eleanor had felt an overwhelming presence in the house, something that watched and tormented her family until their untimely deaths. She had written about rituals and prayers she had performed in a vain attempt to rid the house of the malevolent force. Clutching the journal, I recited one of Eleanor's prayers, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "Spirits of the past, find peace and rest. Leave this place and do not return." The room began to tremble, the apparitions flickering and fading as if being pushed back by an unseen force. The temperature began to rise, and the oppressive weight lifted from our shoulders. With a final, resounding crack, the front door swung open, allowing us to escape into the stormy night. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of our car, the rain pounding against the windshield as we sped away from the house. As we drove, the images of the ghostly Thompsons lingered in my mind, their eternal sorrow a haunting reminder of the darkness that once dwelled within those walls. In the aftermath, Michael and I decided to leave the house, unable to bear the constant fear and the terrifying memories that haunted us. We never returned, and the abandoned house quickly became a symbol of fear in our community. The story of our encounter spread, adding a new chapter to the house's already dark history. Years have passed since that harrowing experience, but the scars remain. Emma and Jake still wake up in the middle of the night, startled by inexplicable noises, and I often catch myself glancing towards the old house when driving past, half expecting to see the ghostly figures staring back at me. The abandoned house in Pennsylvania stands as a testament to the thin veil that separates our world from the unknown, a place where the past refuses to stay buried and the spirits of the lost continue to linger, seeking closure and peace that may never come. Every now and then, when the wind howls just right and the rain taps rhythmically against the windows, I can still hear the sorrowful whispers of the Thompson family. A chilling reminder that some houses hold secrets too dark to uncover, and that the shadows of the past can reach out to claim us when we least expect it. Story number 3. The Snow Beasts of Dalarna, Sweden. 1985. I still wake up in the dead of night. The echoes of that fateful winter in 1985 reverberating through my dreams like the howling winds that once threatened to swallow us whole. My name is Eric Lundgren, and the memories of that December in the remote forests of Dalarna, Sweden, have etched themselves into my soul, haunting me every time I think back to the night we never truly escaped. It was a bitterly cold December when my friends and I, Johan, Michael, Lars, and I, decided to embark on a hunting expedition deep into the heart of Sweden's dense wilderness. We were seasoned hunters, bonded by years of shared adventures and the unspoken understanding that the wilderness demanded respect and caution. Our destination was an area rarely traversed, known for its untouched beauty and abundant game, but also for its isolation and the eerie silence that seemed to blanket the forest. We set out early in the morning, the sky a pale gray, the sun struggling to pierce through the thick blanket of clouds. The air was crisp, each breath a visible puff in the frigid air. Our gear was meticulously packed, rifles slung over our shoulders, sturdy boots crunching through the snow-covered underbrush, and backpacks filled with supplies to sustain us through the harsh winter months. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller and more imposing, their branches heavy with snow, creating a canopy that blocked out much of the already weak sunlight. By midday, we had covered a considerable distance, the terrain becoming more challenging as we navigated through thick undergrowth and over icy streams. Johan, the most experienced among us, led the way with unwavering confidence, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of game. Michael and Lars followed closely, their camaraderie evident in the way they exchanged stories and shared the burdens of the trek. I trailed slightly behind, my mind racing with thoughts of the upcoming hunt and the tranquility that awaited us. As afternoon gave way to evening, the temperature plummeted, and the sky darkened ominously. Johan suggested setting up camp for the night, citing the need for rest and preparation for the next day's hunt. Reluctantly, we agreed. Knowing that the weather was turning against us, we found a relatively flat clearing, surrounded by towering pines whose branches creaked under the weight of the snow. Setting up our tents was a meticulous process, each step executed with precision to ensure our shelter was secure against the impending storm. After settling in, we gathered around a portable stove, the warmth and light providing a semblance of comfort against the encroaching darkness. We shared a hearty meal, the aroma of stew mingling with the earthy scent of the forest. Johan recounted tales of his past hunts, his voice steady and authoritative, while Michael and Lars exchanged banter that filled the night with laughter and ease. I felt a sense of camaraderie, a fleeting moment of peace amidst the wildness that surrounded us. But as night deepened, an unsettling feeling began to settle over me. Started subtly a vague sense of being watched, an unease that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. I glanced around, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow, but saw nothing out of the ordinary, dismissing it as mere fatigue. I tried to focus on the flickering flames of our makeshift fire, but the feeling only intensified. Around midnight, the forest was enveloped in a thick blanket of snow. The storm we had anticipated now fully upon us. The wind howled through the trees, a mournful wail that seemed to carry with it the echoes of forgotten souls. It was then that Johan, ever the vigilant leader, spoke up. "Did anyone else hear that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We strained our ears, the storm's fury masking any subtle sounds. "Hear what?" Michael replied, his tone cautious. "Something moving out there," Johan responded, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the tent's perimeter. Before we could respond, a faint, scraping sound pierced through the howling wind. It was followed by a soft, rhythmic thudding, as if something large was trudging through the snow, searching for us. The temperature inside the tent seemed to drop even further, our breaths quickening in the confined space. Panic began to ripple through the group, our earlier sense of camaraderie now replaced by fear and uncertainty. "We need to stay calm and stick together," Johann instructed, his voice firm despite the fear that crept into his eyes. "Whatever it is, panicking won't help us survive this night." We huddled closer, the dim light from our lantern casting eerie shadows on our faces. The sounds outside grew louder, more distinct, a combination of unnatural noises that defied the rhythm of the storm. It was as if the forest itself was alive, its ancient spirits awakened by our intrusion. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the clearing, followed by a blood-curdling scream that sent chills down our spines. "Lars!" I heard Michael shout, his voice cracking with fear. We sprang to our feet, grabbing our rifles, and rushed out of the tent to find Lars missing. "Where's Lars?" Johann demanded, his eyes wide with concern as he scanned the blinding snow for any sign of our missing friend. I don't know," Michael stammered, his face pale. "He was here a second ago." Frantically, we searched the immediate area, calling out Lars's name into the storm. The wind seemed to mock our desperation, the sounds of footsteps echoing around us. But each time we turned to look, there was nothing there, only the relentless snowfall and the eerie silence that followed each call. As dawn broke, the storm began to abate, the winds dying down to a mere whisper and the snow settling into a soft blanket across the forest floor. Exhausted and desperate, we gathered our gear and continued our search, the footprints in the snow our only guide. But the night's events had left us disoriented and shaken, our minds struggling to piece together what had transpired. When we finally reached a clearing, the first light of day revealing the remnants of our night's terror, we found something that sent a collective shiver down our spines. Large, deep footprints were etched into the snow, unlike any animal we had encountered. The tracks were too wide, too heavy, and the spacing inconsistent with any known wildlife in the area. "These aren't bear tracks," Johann muttered, his face etched with confusion and fear. "Not any animal I know." "We need to report this," Michael insisted, pulling out his phone, only to find no signal. "But how? We're in the middle of nowhere." As we stood there, the reality of our situation began to sink in. Whatever had taken Lars was something beyond our understanding, something that dwelled in the shadows of the Siberian wilderness. Lurking in the cold and the darkness, the sense of being watched returned, now amplified by the discovery of the strange footprints and the unanswered questions that plagued us. Determined to survive and find Lars, we made the difficult decision to leave the forest, our hopes of a successful hunt shattered by the night's horrifying events. The journey back was arduous, our spirits weighed down by the loss of our friend and the chilling realization that we were not alone in those snowy woods. Days turned into weeks, and the search for Lars was eventually called off, our memories of that winter night fading into a haunting legend whispered among hunters and adventurers who dared to traverse the remote regions of Dalarna. For me, the experience left an enduring scar, a constant reminder of the thin line between the known and the unknown, and the unseen forces that guard the wilderness with an unforgiving ferocity. Years later, I still find myself drawn back to the forests of Dalarna, seeking answers and closure that have eluded me for decades. The snow-covered landscape, once a symbol of beauty and adventure, now holds an air of mystery and dread, the shadows of the past lingering like the whispers of lost souls carried by the wind. I often hear the echoes of that night in the howling wind, the footsteps of unseen beings forever etched into my memory. The snow beasts of Dalarna remain an enigmatic legend, a story of survival and the supernatural forces that lie hidden within nature's most extreme environments. It taught me about the fragility of life, the power of fear, and the enduring bonds of friendship forged in the face of unimaginable adversity. And as the first snowflakes of each winter begin to fall, I am reminded of that tragic night, the blood-stained footprints, and the restless spirits that continue to haunt the frozen wilderness, forever guarding their secrets in the heart of the forest. Story number 4. Bloodstains in the Snow, Russia, 2002. I still wake up in the dead of night, the icy wind of that Siberian winter whispering through my dreams like the restless spirits we encountered. My name is Ivan Petrov, and the events of February 2002 have left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I think back to that fateful night in the mountains. It was a cold December evening when my friends and I decided to embark on a snowboarding trip in the remote regions of Siberia. We were a tight-knit group of 5: myself, Elena, Sergei, Mikhail, and Anna, drawn together by our shared love for adventure and the thrill of conquering untouched slopes. The allure of pristine snow and the solitude of the mountains promised an unforgettable experience, far removed from the chaos of our everyday lives. We arrived at the base of Mount Kolyma just as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the snow-covered landscape. The air was crisp, each breath a visible puff in the fading light. Our gear was meticulously packed, and our spirits were high as we began our ascent into the wilderness. The first day was everything we had hoped for: endless trails, breathtaking views, and the exhilarating rush of carving through fresh powder. But as night fell on our second day, the weather took a turn for the worse. Dark clouds rolled in from the north, bringing with them an ominous chill that seemed to seep into our bones. By evening, a fierce blizzard had descended upon us, transforming the serene mountains into a chaotic whiteout. Visibility dropped to near zero, and the howling winds made every step a battle against the elements. We huddled together in our makeshift shelter, trying to stay warm and conserve our energy. The storm raged on, relentless and unforgiving, and it became clear that we were trapped. The winds howled like angry spirits, their cries echoing through the mountains, and the snow piled higher around us with each passing hour. In the midst of the storm, Sergei suggested we venture out to find a better vantage point, hoping to spot any signs of help or a possible route back. Reluctantly, we agreed, knowing that staying put meant certain doom as the storm showed no signs of abating. Armed with our headlamps and the dim light of our flashlights, we braved the blinding snow, our breaths visible in the frigid air. As we trudged through the knee-deep snow, Elena stumbled upon a series of bloodstains leading from the pine trees to an abandoned cabin nestled in a small clearing. Her eyes widened with fear, and she pointed out the gruesome trail that seemed to beckon us forward. "Look," she whispered, her voice trembling. "These bloodstains. They lead to that house." A heavy silence fell over the group as we exchanged uneasy glances. The thought of venturing into an abandoned cabin in the middle of a blizzard was terrifying. But the bloodstains suggested someone or something had been here recently. Our survival instincts battled with our curiosity, and after a moment of hesitation, we decided to follow the trail. The bloodstains were stark against the white snow, a chilling reminder of violence amidst the serenity of the mountains. As we approached the cabin, the howling wind seemed to grow louder, almost as if warning us to turn back. The structure was dilapidated, its windows shattered and the door hanging off its hinges. Despite our fear, we pushed open the door, the creak echoing ominously through the empty rooms. Inside, the cabin was cold and dark, the only light coming from our flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. We stepped cautiously, the air heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic that made my skin crawl. In the center of the main room stood a large table, splattered with dried blood that had stained the once pristine surface. Anna gasped, covering her mouth in horror. "What happened here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm's fury outside. As we explored further, we found a bedroom with a single bed, the sheets stained with dark, old blood, no signs of a struggle, no belongings, just the remnants of a life abruptly ended. The absence of any traces left us more unsettled, the silence of the cabin amplifying our fear. Suddenly, Sergei let out a strangled cry. "Anna!" His voice echoed through the cabin. But when we turned to look, she was gone. Panic surged through us as we frantically searched every corner, calling her name into the empty rooms. The storm outside seemed to intensify, the winds howling as if mocking our desperation. We decided to leave the cabin immediately, the bloodstains and Anna's disappearance serving as a stark warning. As we made our way back through the blinding snow, the sense of being watched grew stronger, a heavy presence pressing down on us. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified by the storm's wrath. Hours passed in a blur of fear and exhaustion, and just when we thought we might find our way back, we stumbled upon a second set of bloodstains, this time leading into the dense forest. Elena pointed them out, her face pale and drawn. "These can't be real," she murmured. "It's like the blood is moving." As we followed the second trail, a haunting realization dawned on us. The bloodstains weren't just markers of past violence. They were leading us deeper into the heart of the mountain, towards an unknown fate. The whispers we had dismissed earlier now became clearer, faint voices carried by the wind, calling our names with a sorrowful plea. Desperation drove us to keep moving. Despite the mounting fear and the storm's unrelenting assault, we pushed ourselves to the brink, each step a battle against the oppressive cold and the eerie sensations that something malevolent was following us. Just as dawn began to break, the storm finally subsided, revealing the devastated landscape that had claimed our path. Exhausted and on the verge of collapse, we finally reached a familiar trail that led us back to our shelter. But relief was short-lived when we returned. Sergei was nowhere to be found. The realization that we had lost another member of our group hit us hard, the horror of our situation sinking in like the snow beneath our feet. We spent the rest of the day in a state of numb disbelief, the weight of our losses and the unanswered questions pressing down on us. The authorities launched a massive search effort, but Sergei was never found. The cabin remained a mystery, its blood-stained rooms and the disappearance of two friends leaving an indelible scar on our community. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the memories remain vivid, haunting me like the restless spirits of the mountains. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered peaks, the winds whispering secrets that only the mountain knows. The bloodstains in the snow serve as a chilling reminder of the night when curiosity led us into the heart of darkness, where the line between the living and the dead blurred into a terrifying reality. The blizzard of 2002 at Mount Kalima became a cautionary tale, a story of survival against insurmountable odds and the supernatural forces that may lie hidden within nature's most extreme environments. It taught me about the fragility of life, the power of hope, and the enduring bonds of friendship forged in the face of unimaginable adversity. And so, I warn others to heed the warnings of the past, to respect the boundaries set by those who came before us. For in the heart of the Siberian wilderness, the spirits of the lost still linger, their sorrowful cries echoing through the silent snow, a testament to the eternal struggle between life and death, and the shadows that dwell within the darkest corners of our world. Story number 5. The New Portrait at Winter Ridge, USA. 1981. I still wake up in the dead of night. The chill of that December evening in 1981 creeping into my bones like the shadows that danced on the walls of our rented cabin. My name is David Harris, and the memories of that Christmas at Winter Ridge remain etched in my mind, haunting me every time I recall the silent whispers and the cold gaze that never left the painting. It was the holiday season, a time when my wife, Linda, and our two children, Emily and Jake, decided to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. We yearned for tranquility, a place where the snow-covered landscape and the serenity of the mountains could offer us a reprieve. After weeks of searching, we stumbled upon a charming cabin nestled in the heart of the Rockies, promising peace and picturesque views. From the moment we arrived, Winter Ridge seemed like a dream. The cabin was cozy, adorned with rustic furniture and large windows that framed the majestic peaks outside. The scent of pine and the soft crackle of the fireplace welcomed us, and we felt an immediate sense of belonging. The advertisement had showcased beautiful images of the interior and the surrounding wilderness, but nothing had prepared us for the peculiar addition that awaited us inside. As we unpacked, Emily, ever the curious one, discovered a large, ornate painting hanging in the living room. It depicted a man standing against the backdrop of a snowy landscape, his eyes piercing and cold, almost lifelike. The painting was striking, his presence commanding attention. Yet there was no mention of it in the cabin's listing or during our initial walkthrough. When I asked the owner, an elderly man named Mr. Thompson, about it, he simply shrugged and said, "It's just something that happened to be here. Adds character, I suppose." That night, as we settled in, the painting seemed to watch us with an intensity that was unsettling. Emily kept glancing at it, whispering about how the man's eyes felt like they were following her every move. I dismissed it as her imagination, the result of the cabin's secluded and eerie atmosphere. But Linda shared my unease. There was something undeniably off about that portrait. The first few nights passed uneventfully, but soon, strange occurrences began to disrupt our peaceful retreat. It started subtly. Doors that we were certain we had closed were found ajar in the morning, and items seemed to have moved slightly from where we left them. Emily and Jake swore they heard footsteps echoing through the bedrooms at night, a soft, shuffling sound that sent shivers down their spines. When we checked, no one was there, just the stillness of the night and the haunting gaze of the painting. One particularly frigid night, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows and sending icy drafts through the cabin. We huddled together in the living room, the fireplace struggling to keep the chill at bay. Emily was visibly shaken, her eyes darting nervously towards the painting. "Why does he keep looking at us?" she whispered, clutching her blanket tightly. Linda tried to reassure her, but even she couldn't mask the fear in her voice. "It's just a painting, sweetie. There's nothing to be afraid of." But as the clock ticked past midnight, the true horror began to unfold. The room grew colder, the temperature dropping sharply despite the fire's effort. The shadows in the corners seemed to lengthen, and the silence was broken by the soft, deliberate footsteps that Emily and Jake had described. Panic set in as we realized the footsteps were now closer, moving deliberately from room to room. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer, just the sound of footsteps continuing their eerie procession. We all stood up, hearts pounding, and made our way cautiously towards the bedrooms, only to find them empty once more. The man in the painting seemed to watch us with a silent, malevolent intent, his eyes glinting ominously in the dim light. That night, unable to sleep, I decided to confront the source of our fear. Armed with a flashlight, I approached the painting, examining it closely. There was something unsettling about the man's expression. His eyes seemed almost too real, too alive. As I stared into them, a chill ran down my spine, and the room felt as though it was closing in on me. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering echoed through the cabin. I spun around, flashlight darting towards the noise, but found nothing amiss. My mind raced, trying to rationalize the events, but a deep sense of dread settled over me. I glanced back at the painting, and for a split second, I thought I saw the man's eyes follow me, his expression shifting to one of pure malice. I rushed back to join Linda and the children, who were now visibly terrified. "We need to leave," Linda insisted, her voice shaking. "This place isn't right." Despite the growing sense of fear, we packed our belongings in a hurried attempt to escape the cabin that had become our prison. As we reached the front door, a sudden gust of wind blew through the broken windows, extinguishing the fireplace and plunging us into darkness. The whispers we had dismissed earlier now grew louder, voices overlapping in a cacophony of sorrow and rage. "Leave! Leave now!" The voices seemed to chant, echoing through the empty rooms and pressing down on our spirits. The house felt alive, its walls pulsating with an oppressive energy that suffocated any hope of staying. We scrambled towards the door, but it wouldn't budge, the wooden planks frozen shut by an unseen force. "We have to fight our way out," I shouted, determination battling with the terror that gripped us. With renewed urgency, we pounded on the door, the sound muffled by the storm outside. Just as despair began to take hold, a loud crash reverberated through the cabin, the door finally giving way and swinging open. We stumbled out into the raging blizzard, the cold wind biting at our faces as we ran for our lives, the haunting image of the painting burning into our minds. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of our cars, the cabin disappearing behind us as the storm continued to rage. As we drove away, the snowflakes swirling around us like ghostly apparitions, the memory of that night stayed with us, an eternal reminder of the darkness that can hide behind the most beautiful facades. In the weeks that followed, we tried to piece together what had happened. Mr. Thompson had passed away shortly after our departure, leaving no one to explain the origins of the mysterious painting. The townsfolk whispered about curses and restless spirits, turning Winter Ridge into a place of fear and superstition. The image of the man with the cold eyes became a local legend, a symbol of the unseen forces that dwell within forgotten places. Our experience at Winter Ridge left deep scars. Emily and Jake developed a lasting fear of secluded places and unexplained phenomena, while Linda and I struggled with the nightmares that plagued our nights. The painting's gaze haunted us, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. Years later, the memory of that Christmas still lingers, a shadow that follows me through the quiet moments of my life. I often find myself glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the cold eyes of the man in the painting staring back at me from the darkness. The abandoned cabin at Winter Ridge stands as a silent sentinel, the secrets buried beneath layers of snow and time, waiting for the next unsuspecting family to uncover its dark past. The legends of Winter Ridge continue to grow, each retelling adding layers to the eerie history of the place. Some say the man in the painting still roams the halls, his sorrowful cries carried by the wind, forever seeking closure that has eluded him for decades. Whether those whispers are real or just the remnants of our haunted memories, one thing remains certain. Some paintings hold more than just colors and brushstrokes. They hold the souls of the forgotten, trapped in a perpetual winter of their own making. And so, I warn others to heed the warnings of the past, to respect the boundaries set by those who came before us. For in the silence of the abandoned cabin, the spirit of the man with the cold eyes still lingers, his sorrowful gaze a chilling testament to the power of fear and the mysteries that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding. Story number 6. The Blizzard at Denali, 1992. I still wake up in the dead of night, the howling winds of that December storm in 1992 echoing in my ears like the relentless cries of the lost. My name is Jonathan Reed, and the events that unfolded during that fateful winter in the Alaskan wilderness have left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I close my eyes. It was a cold December morning when my friends and I, Emily, Mark, Sarah, and I, decided to embark on an adventure to Denali, eager to conquer its majestic peaks and experience the raw beauty of the Alaskan wilderness. We were seasoned hikers and avid winter sports enthusiasts, fully equipped with the latest gear and meticulously planned routes. Armed with maps, GPS devices, and an unyielding spirit of camaraderie, we set out with high hopes and excitement coursing through our veins. The first few days were everything we had dreamed of. The snow-covered landscapes stretched endlessly before us. Pristine and untouched, we trekked through dense pine forests, crossed frozen rivers, and ascended steep trails that offered breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains. Each evening, we set up camp, sharing stories by the fire and marveling at the clarity of the night sky, punctuated by a blanket of stars. However, as we ventured deeper into the heart of Denali, the weather began to change. Dark clouds loomed ominously on the horizon, casting long shadows over the snow-covered terrain. The wind picked up, whispering warnings through the trees. But we dismissed them as mere signs of nature's unpredictability. Determined to push forward, we continued our ascent, unaware of the impending doom that awaited us. On the 5th day, we decided to take a detour to explore a less-traveled trail that promised even more spectacular vistas. The path was challenging, with steep inclines and narrow ridges, but our enthusiasm kept us moving forward. As noon approached, the sky darkened rapidly, and the temperature plummeted. We realized too late that a fierce blizzard was brewing, its fury unleashed with terrifying speed. Panic set in as visibility dropped to near zero, the swirling snow making it impossible to discern the path ahead. The wind howled like a living beast, tearing at our faces and chilling us to the bone. We huddled together, seeking shelter against the storm's wrath. But the howling winds seemed to penetrate even the thickest layers of our gear. Our communication devices were rendered useless, swallowed by the relentless snow and interference. In the chaos of the blizzard, we lost sight of each other. Emily and Mark were separated from Sarah and me, their voices drowned out by the storm's roar. The night was a terrifying ordeal of isolation and fear, each of us grappling with the desperate hope of finding our way back to the group. As hours passed, exhaustion and hypothermia began to take their toll, our bodies numb and our minds clouded by fear and desperation. It was in the early hours of the morning, when hope was dwindling and darkness enveloped the world, that I found myself alone, surrounded by an overwhelming sense of dread. The storm showed no signs of abating, and the cold was merciless. As I stumbled through the blinding snow, disoriented and on the brink of collapse, I heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper carried by the wind. "Jonathan, Jonathan." At first, I thought it was a trick of my mind, the result of sheer exhaustion and isolation. But the voice grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the storm like a mournful cry. "Jonathan, help us." The whispers seemed to come from all directions, their sorrowful tones sending shivers down my spine. Desperate and terrified, I pressed on, the voice guiding me through the blinding whiteout. Each step felt like a battle against an unseen force, the storm's fury seemingly intensified by the presence of something beyond our understanding. The whispers followed me relentlessly, their origin elusive yet unmistakably familiar. Hours turned into what felt like an eternity as I navigated the treacherous terrain, the storm showing no mercy. My strength waned, and I struggled to keep moving forward. The whispers a constant reminder of the friends I had lost to the storm's wrath. Just as my hope was about to fade completely, the storm began to subside, the winds dying down and the snow slowing to a gentle fall. Exhausted and near collapse, I stumbled upon a makeshift shelter, a small, abandoned cabin nestled between two towering pines. With nothing left to lose, I forced the door open and collapsed inside, my body trembling from the cold and the harrowing experience. The cabin was dark and silent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. I found solace in the relative warmth, but the whispers still echoed in my mind, their sorrowful pleas a haunting reminder of the night we lost. Morning light filtered through the cabin's broken windows, revealing the devastation wrought by the storm. Determined to find help, I ventured out into the still-frozen wilderness, following the faint trail back to civilization. Hours later, exhausted and frostbitten, I finally stumbled upon a search party dispatched by the authorities. They found me wandering through the snow, alive but deeply traumatized by the night's events. The aftermath of that harrowing night was a blur of grief and sorrow. Our group had been scattered by the storm, and despite extensive search efforts, only I had survived. Emily and Mark were never found, their disappearance a tragic loss that left our community mourning and questioning the forces of nature that had claimed their lives so mercilessly. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister had been at play during the storm. The whispers I heard seemed too real, too desperate to be mere figments of my imagination. Locals spoke of spirits trapped in the mountains, their souls forever bound to the unforgiving landscape, seeking help and release from their eternal torment. Years have passed since that fateful winter, but the memories remain vivid, haunting me like a ghost that refuses to fade. I often find myself returning to Denali, seeking closure and understanding of what truly happened that night. The mountains still stand majestic and cold, their peaks shrouded in snow, holding secrets that the storm's fury had only partially revealed. The blizzard of 1992 at Denali became a cautionary tale, a story of survival against insurmountable odds and the supernatural forces that may lurk within nature's most extreme environments. It taught me about the fragility of life, the power of hope, and the enduring bonds of friendship forged in the face of unimaginable adversity. And so, every winter, as the first snowflakes begin to fall, I remember the whispers in the wind, the screams lost in the storm, and the friends I lost to the mountain's icy embrace. The blizzard remains a chilling reminder that nature's beauty can conceal its darkest secrets, and that sometimes, the most terrifying horrors are those that reside within the very elements we seek to conquer. Story number 7. Whispers in the Wind. The Jeanette Dumas Mystery, Banff. 1967. I still wake up in the dead of night, the echoes of that winter's terror reverberating through my dreams like the relentless howl of the wind across Banff's unforgiving peaks. My name is Michael Anderson, and the events of February 1967 have left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I think back to that fateful season. It was a cold December when Jeanette Dumas, a vibrant and adventurous woman in her early 30s, decided to explore the pristine wilderness of Banff National Park. Jeanette was my childhood friend, someone who embodied the spirit of freedom and curiosity. Her disappearance shook our tight-knit community, and the subsequent discovery of her body a year later only deepened the mystery surrounding her fate. Jeanette had always been drawn to the mountains, finding solace in their majestic solitude. On that winter day in 1967, she embarked on a solo trip, determined to conquer one of Banff's most challenging trails. Friends and family voiced concerns, urging her to take the easier paths, but Jeanette's resolve was unwavering. She believed in the purity of nature and the clarity it brought to her restless mind. The day she vanished, the weather had taken a turn for the worse. What began as a crisp morning with clear skies quickly descended into a ferocious blizzard. Witnesses reported seeing Jeanette struggling against the howling winds, her figure barely visible through the whiteout conditions. As night fell, the storm intensified, enveloping the mountains in a relentless fury that seemed almost supernatural. Search parties were dispatched immediately, braving the treacherous conditions in hopes of finding Jeanette alive. Days turned into weeks, and the harsh winter showed no mercy. The community held on to hope, but as time wore on, the grim reality set in. Jeanette was gone, swallowed by the unforgiving wilderness. A year later, as winter approached once more, a search team stumbled upon her remains in a secluded ravine. The discovery was met with sorrow and relief in equal measure. But what perplexed authorities was the absence of any signs of struggle or foul play. Jeanette's body showed no evidence of an accident or attack, leaving investigators baffled. The only clue was a series of vague, muffled voices captured on one of the search team's early recordings. "Jeanette! Jeanette!" The whispers seemed to call out from the depths of the mountain, fading into the howling wind. Locals claimed that, on the night of her disappearance, they had heard similar calls carried by the storm, voices that seemed both familiar and otherworldly. But no one dared to venture out into the blinding blizzard to investigate further. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the whispers linger in my mind, a haunting reminder of the unknown forces that may dwell within Banff's icy embrace. I often find myself returning to the mountains, seeking answers and closure, but the wilderness remains an enigma, the secrets buried beneath layers of snow and time. One particularly harsh winter, driven by a mix of guilt and determination, I decided to retrace Jeanette's last known steps, armed with nothing but a map, a flashlight, and my own restless spirit, I ventured into the heart of Banff, hoping to uncover the truth behind her disappearance. The journey was grueling, the snow deep and the winds merciless, but my resolve pushed me forward. As I navigated the treacherous trails, the landscape transformed into a ghostly expanse of white, each step a battle against the biting cold and the relentless storm. The howling winds seemed to carry whispers, echoes of voices that called out my name, just as they had called out Jeanette's. My heart raced, torn between fear and the desperate need for answers. Night fell swiftly, and the storm's fury only intensified. Visibility dwindled to mere feet, and the mountains seemed to close in around me, its silent majesty now a menacing force. I stumbled upon the very ravine where Jeanette's body had been found, the area untouched by time yet eerily familiar. The air was thick with the scent of pine and something else, something metallic that made my skin crawl. Desperation set in as I realized I was lost, trapped in the heart of a blizzard with no hope of rescue. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the mountain itself was trying to communicate. "Jeanette, help us!" The voices pleaded, their sorrow palpable in the howling wind. I collapsed to the ground, shivering uncontrollably, my breath visible in the frigid air. As I lay there, the snow around me began to shift, revealing faint outlines of figures emerging from the white abyss, ghostly apparitions of past hikers, their eyes hollow and faces etched with eternal sorrow. Surrounded me, they reached out with translucent hands, their touch cold and lifeless. "Why won't you let us go?" one of them whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the truth. Jeanette and others like her were trapped in a perpetual winter, their souls bound to the mountain by unresolved pain and unfinished business. The whispers were not just voices of the lost. They were pleas for help, cries for someone to understand and release them from their eternal torment. Summoning every ounce of strength, I reached out to one of the apparitions, my hand passing through her ethereal form. "I want to help you," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, let me assist you." The ghostly figure smiled sadly, a glimmer of hope in her spectral eyes. "Find the heart of the storm," she instructed, her voice a soothing balm amidst the chaos. "Only then can you break the curse and free us." Determined to save them, I began searching for the center of the blizzard, battling against the relentless storm and the mounting despair. Each step was a testament to my will to persevere, driven by the memory of Jeanette and the countless souls trapped in the mountain's icy grip. After what felt like an eternity, I reached a secluded clearing where the storm seemed to converge, the winds swirling in a frenzied dance. In the center stood an ancient pine tree, its branches heavy with snow and ice, its roots entwined with the very fabric of the mountain. I placed my hand on the trunk, feeling the raw energy pulsating beneath the surface. "Accept our suffering," I chanted, repeating the words of the apparitions. "Release us from this eternal winter." A surge of energy coursed through me, and the spirits began to fade, their sorrowful cries transforming into whispers of gratitude. The storm began to subside, the winds calming as the mountain exhaled a long-held breath. The snow around me melted into a gentle snowfall, the oppressive weight lifting from my shoulders. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the remnants of the storm, illuminating the clearing with a soft, golden glow. The apparitions had vanished, their souls finally at peace, freed from the mountain's icy embrace. Exhausted but triumphant, I made my way back to civilization, the memory of that night etched into my very being. The avalanche of 1967 at Banff became a cautionary tale, a story of survival and the supernatural forces that guard the wilderness. It taught me about the fragility of life and the enduring power of hope, even in the face of nature's most formidable challenges. Jeanette's spirit, along with those of countless others, now rests peacefully, their whispers no longer haunting the winds but echoing through the annals of Banff's history as a testament to resilience and the eternal bond between humanity and the untamed wilderness. Years later, as I recount this story to those who dare to listen, I urge them to respect the mountain's secrets and heed the lessons of the past. For in the heart of Banff, where the snow never truly melts and the winds carry the whispers of the lost, there lies a darkness that can only be overcome by understanding, compassion, and unwavering courage.